Kong for the last generation.
I'm BakerMarshall.com, the Republican candidate for governor.
Have sexual relations with
I realize that this is something he is
We're not going to be able to solve our problems if we get distracted by sideshows and carnival barkers.
One Republican, one Democrat, and you discuss the issues that matter in today's local, state, national, and global politics. Hosted by Steve Hickson with co-hosts John Stanberry and Franklin Chansey. This is Backfire.
All right, welcome to another edition of Backfire. Everybody's fired up and ready to go. Good morning, John.
Hey, Steve.
Good morning, Franklin. And we have a guest in the studio this morning. One of our local county commissioners, Mr. Tom Cry. Welcome aboard.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you for asking me to come down.
Well, wait a minute. Who said I asked you? No, I'm just kidding you. I'm just kidding. Thank you very much. Let's start out this morning with some local stuff. What is going on with this van investigation? And Dan Rawls wanting them headlines here in the banner, wanting a big investigation over this van that wouldn't sell at auction that got sold for $20,000 in Nashville.
It's amazing what a 11-year-old van can bring with 3,000 miles on it. It was purchased out of drug funds. Originally, I think it's 2005, 2006. I don't recall the exact year. By Sheriff Gilley, sent to South Florida to be allegedly loaded up with technology. Came back. Total trip down there was roughly 1,800 plus miles. So during the Gilley administration, during the Gobble administration, during the Ruth administration, it was used for a total of about 1,500 miles. As you and I both know, that all of us know really, that technology, I can buy a laptop today, 5 years later, the technology is obsolete. However, the laptop can still be used for some purposes. The current administration, Sheriff Watson, as I recall, took office, did an inventory of his assets. The van didn't show up. The employees knew the van existed, but didn't know where it was at. Took a while to locate it, and from what the paper says, it was located in Charleston. Where exactly, I have no earthly idea. And then later decided to be disposed of. It came through the county commission properly as a request to dispose of assets. It was approved. If there was anything wrong with that request, it was only that it didn't disclose the contents of the van. They then later placed it on gov.deals with a $30,000 minimum bid, which raises questions from everyone if you don't disclose what's in it, because the book value on it, I think, was roughly $75,000 or $8,000.
That's on the van the way it was without all the equipment.
Without all the equipment, right.
Okay.
Now, it appears
that book van, with that van being that low, let's say it's $10,000.
Right.
Okay.
But no disclosure was made. We weren't made aware of any disclosure of the contents of the van, but now allegedly photographs were made available showing the interior of the van, but not necessarily a listing of the equipment in the van. But over that period of time, one can only assume that the depreciated value of the equipment had gone down dramatically. As far as controlling assets, the county requires anything over $1,000 to be controlled. The van was on the list. The equipment inside was not. It was upgraded allegedly during the Ruth administration.
It said that in 2014, over $3,000 to have it updated. It had a DVR system in it, so it was digital. So you can watch DVR movies if you're in it. You know, most people do that in their Ford Broncos now.
Now, DVR stands for recording, so it was meant. In other words, it was upgraded that it would record on hard
I thought
CD
so
format.
the kids could watch movies.
Now that means it could actually record on discs.
Oh, okay, all right. Now go ahead.
That's allegedly what was done. It's interesting that you get all these receipts and all these purchase orders. Nothing directly ties it to the van, although common sense would normally tell you that it goes to the van. And that's where we were. There's a lot of smoke and mirrors here. Nothing illegal. Procedural mistakes probably, which will be corrected on it's being worked on at the present time by the commission to come up with the proper procedure for disposal of assets. But again, I've looked at it very closely from the beginning. There are a lot of questions, nothing illegal. Some things should have been done differently. It was disposed of. The check cleared, and it was placed back in to the drug fund where it should have gone.
Well, and Dan says that it doesn't. He just doesn't like the way this smells.
Well,
Does it smell bad to you?
If I looked at it from the angle that Dan's looking at it, I could make that case. But if there's an odor, it doesn't necessarily mean there's a crime. And I don't see that there's anything illegal here. There's some things that maybe should have been done differently on the disposition of the assets. We could not find an inventory list of equipment in there. We could not find the cost of the itemized pieces of equipment that were placed in there. When it was upgraded, the list was there, but the cost wasn't there. When you have a 5-year record, a law in Tennessee, you keep the records 5 years. This was in excess of the 5 years, apparently.
What do you think about the county having a policy that you have to maintain records on an item of property as long as the county owns the property?
That on the surface sounds logical, but then let's look at what you're doing. You go in any office, you might have 20 file cabinets, you might have 10 desks. The county-wide, that's not feasible, but it is feasible to an office holder, like the sheriff's office or the register of deeds or assessor of property. Good management would dictate that they do that with their own equipment, but a county-wide policy where the mayor maintains that, I don't think is feasible. That's why the $1,000.
I think that the county commission could certainly have a policy that tied budgetary funding to maintaining proper documentation.
Isn't this county drug money?
This was purchased from the county.
Well, the drug fund's actually a multi-county fund.
Is this from the drug task force funds?
Yes, and the problem there too is there's been a lot of changes to that. That became an independent standing organization. It's now been moved back to where there's a little bit more local control in each county.
There's another question that really nobody talked about in this that I've seen thus far. How many miles were on this van?
I don't know exactly, 3,300, 3,500 miles roughly.
3,500 miles during the time that we owned it.
It did a lot of setting.
Well, let's keep in mind 1,800 miles of that was spent
the
going
drive
to
to
South
Florida to have it updated.
Right.
The question I would have is, did we need it to begin with?
Yeah.
But here's another thing you got to keep in mind, and even when you talk about, I don't disagree with you, Franklin, on the possibility of keeping these records beyond 5 years. But in this particular case, this goes back 3 administrations.
Sure.
Yeah.
So the current sheriff is being asked for documentation that happened 3 administrations
I understand. I'm not.
I think the current sheriff has done everything that he conceivingly can
We didn't
do.
even know it existed or where it was when he came into office.
When he came into office, it wasn't on the list of equipment or things that he
Well, but that speaks to what Franklin was bringing up, that we should have better lists.
But then the argument there on the past administration, or some I've discovered that anything related to drugs, it's a quasi operation. You've got separate tags on the vehicles, you've got separate identities and all that stuff. But fact is, it wasn't on the list of equipment that Sheriff Watson assumed control of. He knew that it existed. He located it. It had not been used over those administrations for except 1,500 miles roughly, and he disposed of the equipment.
Tom, as I read one of the stories, I know that I remember reading that Hamilton County actually looked at the van. A couple of departments looked at it and passed on making a bid on it. Is that right?
That's correct, and it gets back to the technology, and that's where the argument that Commissioner Rawls is coming in with about the value. Well, that might be true when the equipment was originally purchased. Technology is like the typewriter has been replaced by the keyboard. It'll do a function, but it's not the current technology, not used by most law enforcement agencies today.
Well, and computers are different. I mean, very few people buy used computers for their business.
That's true. Very true. I think there was a lot of issues here but nothing illegal. And I think the sheriff, when you look back, he did what he thought was right. We identified it as drug money in the commission. As coming out of the drug fund originally, and we placed it right back in there at the last finance meeting. That's where it was put back in.
So you got $20,000 that went into the drug
task force.
Drug task force, right.
Money. Okay. Why does Dan keep this thing alive like this? What's the problem here? Why can't we just move on and go to the next deal? What's the other big problem you got up there at the county that we want to talk about this morning?
I'll let Dan answer why he keeps moving it.
We're talking about Gary Davis questions, read-only report needed.
Gary didn't question. Gary went apoplectic.
Let's talk about that a minute.
Hey,
Dad, let's talk about something that means something here. Let's go. That van's history.
The van hopefully is history. We can take our oxygen and use it on another project. The issue that you've raised came up in the technology committee, which I'm not a member of, but I did sit in on the committee that discussed this. I think you have an issue that goes back many commissions previously. Everybody wants information. And
who has that information they want?
Normally the finance director, which falls under the mayor, and Mike Smith.
So many commissions go back. The commission wants information, and the mayor doesn't want to let it go.
Well, he technically that's not accurate, because he will eventually let it go
At 25 cents a sheet on a hard paper copy.
I've never been requested to pay per sheet. Normally, I've had good results on getting information back in a day, 2 days, but I can't go in when I'm working on a project and ask the administrative assistant to punch the computer and pull it up.
Well, let me ask you a quick question.
Yes, sir.
I don't want to get into too many details here. It's my understanding that read-only report is all you need, right? Where you can go on your computer, you as a county commissioner get to look at these reports as soon as they're printed out anyway.
Well, the read-only, as I understand it, was a protection, so you couldn't alter the document.
That's right. I understand that. I mean, that goes on in business.
All the time.
All the time.
Daily.
So basically, you can pull it up, you can look at it, you can't alter anything.
And this is the people's information.
And then if you want to talk about it at the next meeting, you have that going on. Now then, is the problem with that they're going to have it printed out and waiting on you when you get to the meeting? Anyway,
well, he wants you to have to come ask for it, and then they'll print it off on paper and give it to you when they get to it.
I think it goes. That's what John is saying is factually correct, but I think we're going back to a much larger problem in county government. We cannot technologically speak to each other. The Mike Smith's office cannot speak with the mayor's office by computer, and the mayor cannot speak to Stanley Thompson's office by computer. We have three different systems.
Are there any other counties in the state of Tennessee that way?
I have no earthly idea. It's irritating as all get out to me, because you would think when we were dealing with a multi-million-dollar budget as we are in the county that the offices can communicate by computer.
Well, now, am I just off kilter to think it's odd that we could find the money to be one of only 5 counties in the state with a county self-sustaining fire department, but our computers can't talk to each other? That wasn't a higher priority?
That we get into one of my pet peeves on putting priorities into how you do things in government. fire department was one of the gifts presented to the current commission by the previous commission, along with dog control and Lake Forest Middle School and a few other things that we've spent all this time on.
I would strongly suggest, there's a story in the Times this morning about regional growth, and Bradley and Hamilton County are the two fastest growing counties in the southeast region. Here, both of them in the last 5 years, just 5 years, had 5.2% population growth, according to the
Which
census
should have brought
data.
increased revenue.
Well, I'm sure it has brought some increased revenue, but the point I'm simply making is, if you think those problems have been left in your lap now, a commission 4 or 8 years from now is really going to be screaming if there isn't some serious long-range planning done now, county-wide.
Well, Tom, let me ask a question, because am guilty of getting caught up in the heat here of what happened. As I understand it, the mayor got really upset and red-faced, pretty ugly tone, back and forth upset. So sometimes I think it's good to back up a little bit and look at the psychology of this. Why would you get this angry and this upset over this issue? It'd be one thing if you said, look, this is going to take a lot of extra work. During budget season, I might need some extra temporary help to do this. That's all reasonable conversation. But when you see his reaction and how angry he was, it calls the question, why would you be so threatened with the public or even just a county commissioner having actual access to these documents?
Well, let me take that one step further. If he's upset because he doesn't want the public to see it, unless it's
we've asked for the county
wait a minute,
check
unless
register.
It's requested, all it has to be is restricted to the county commissioners to see it. Am I right or wrong? And the different county governments.
I think let me make a statement. Maybe I can bring this thing into a little more perspective. The pathway to hell is paved with good intentions, and I think good intentions were intended here. However, I defend the mayor to a point. If I had been the mayor and I got hit with this on the county commission without having one hint that it was coming, I would not be a happy camper. Okay, now that the intention here is good. We need the information. However, the mayor was not consulted. This was brought up in a voting session, not a work session, and it was not on the agenda. Should have been on the agenda.
Is the mayor a member of the commission?
The mayor is a member. He is a member of the county. He sits there, yes.
He sits there, but he's not a member. Tom, y'all are a functioning, separate body that can do whatever you want.
Oh, well, I won't argue that point. I'm just not arguing, making the statement that it should have been brought to the mayor's attention for his feedback or input.
Well, I can tell you that several years ago when Lisa was on the commission, the commission was asked to approve a $40 million Euro bond debt swap. Now, I'll ask people out there, any of you people investing your retirement in Greek bonds right now or, Turkish bonds? But that was the request, a $40 million Euro bond debt swap, and the commission was giving a single pie graph to approve that. And my wife asked for the prospectus on this from the financial guy. He said he'd bring it, then he didn't bring it, then he refused to bring it, and when she asked the mayor's office, she was told it was 800 pages, and she would have to pay 25 cents a page to get it. Now, that's a $40 million deal with the county taxpayers' money, and all you all as a commission were given was a pie graph. That's unacceptable. And that speaks of someone who, for whatever reason, and that's why I think you see this kind of angry outburst on his part, it almost makes you wonder, what do you have to hide in these documents?
I don't think there's anything that I've seen to hide.
Because you haven't seen it. That's the point right there.
What do you think the problem? Do you see a problem with it?
Well, I think the problem goes back to what I brought out earlier.
Marlon Blake, let me say this. Marlon Blake is very computer savvy, and he understands.
He's an expert.
Yes, and he understands how to put some of these things together and how it would help things. And I think, he's got some great ideas. And if you're not linking up computers, you're not being able to read a report right now on a computer. If you're on a commission or on a committee or whatever, you can have access to it or not have access to it. I just don't understand the problem.
We have a major problem in the county on the computers, the offices not being capable of communicating with each other by computer. When you set the budget and you don't have up-to-date current access to the assessor's information on what the assessment of real estate is, on what the tax rate is based, current information, you have a problem. When the mayor can't get current information from the trustee's office on the same computer, you've got a problem. So we have a problem on being able to communicate electronically by computer in Bradley County government, which brings on other issues. The genesis of this issue probably lies with we're being in the last century on computer technology in county government.
Don't we still operate under the 1950-something Financial Management Act?
Oh, yeah.
The commission has pushed for years to at least move to the 1981 Financial Management Act.
Now that we appear to have most of these inherited problems taken care of or under control, we're going to move on to some of these new initiatives, but it gets back, I think, to what Franklin said earlier. It's a ladder of priorities. When you put prisoners and you put dogs and cats on the ladder of priority ahead of education and government policy and procedures to streamline things, we have an issue. And I think we've got to recognize that, and we're slowly getting around to that.
All right. Well, that was more interesting than trying to run another investigation on that van.
Hopefully that van has taken a long nap. It's gone into sleep mode
Look,
here.
I want to defend the commission for a minute. This happens all the time, and it's happened for years. The commission is put in a bind. An issue will, now, Tom, you're defending the mayor and said he should have been given prior warning. Happens to you all the time. An issue will be brought to the commission, and they'll be told, we have to take action before next Wednesday. And they'll be given very little, if any, information on it. And it's always the intensity, it's got to be done, it's got to be done. And so the commission is pushed, and they take a vote, and they do something. But like good commissioners, a lot of them later will start to look at that issue and go, now, what exactly did we do here? And when they ask a question about something that maybe they're concerned about after the fact, the mayor throws it back to them and said, well, you voted on it. So they're always put in a bind with no information, forced to take a vote, and then the vote is held up. And by the way, if that vote works out well, the mayor will say, look what I did. If it works out bad, he'll say, look what the commission did.
Oh, well. Anyway, let's hope we can get something going. Oh, well.
It makes life interesting. There's never a dull moment.
Did your budget have any sections that were put in upside down or backwards, as I understood that some of them were?
Well, I'm retired from the military and served in the Orient, and I'm accustomed to reading Chinese or looking at Chinese print. I go from back to front, so I could handle it.
But some of the budget documents were actually put together upside down or printed back.
Well, it was in sequence. It's just reverse sequence.
Reverse sequence.
Yeah,
I bet that copy that gets sent to the county mayor's club of let's give each other awards, that probably was put together correctly.
I don't know about that. I'm not familiar with that, but it was not an issue with me. I very quickly figured out that there were a lot of requested increases in the budget which have to be identified and addressed. So we're going to put it back in education, hopefully where it belongs.
All right, Tom, I want to say hands off to you. You've done a wonderful job at the county commission. I'm serious. You've dove into a lot of things, and you've stepped up and not afraid to move forward. But do one thing for us. Let's get the county computerized. What do you think?
And get the check register online so the taxpayer could actually look at the checks that are written.
As long as the memo line on the check is accurate, it would make sense. But
that's been resisted in the county mayor's office for years as well.
I'm not going to place blame on that, but it is amazing when you put sunlight on an issue how beautiful it looks. It grows into a thing of beauty when you put enough sunlight
so
on
your
it.
8-year-old can have an account at First Tennessee and look at it online, but the county taxpayer can't look on the multi-million-dollar taxpayer checkbook.
I'll let Mylon Blake address that later Commissioner Blake, when he comes in. He's the computer expert. I look at it with my knowledge of broad terms. I know I can't punch a computer in county government and get Mike Smith's information on the same computer that I can get Stanley Thompson's information. And it's critical when you start forming a budget that you know what your projected income is, what your projected expenses are, and we can get the expenses, but we can't get the accurate projected income.
All right. I want to talk about something's in the headlines this morning. Chattanooga Times. Baseball coaches at Walker Valley High School in Cleveland, Tennessee took swift action after they found 9 students drinking beer and wine during the team's spring break trip to South Carolina. Parents and authorities were immediately called. The team packed up, came home, forfeiting the remaining games it was scheduled to play in the tournament. The 8 players and the student team manager caught drinking were suspended from school for 2 weeks. And the boys were told they couldn't play on the team for the remainder of the season. Now then, good, bad, harsh?
Excellent.
Excellent. They handled it perfectly.
And they handled it the way it would have been handled when we were kids. That's exactly what would have happened 30 years ago, and that's what should be happening.
Do you think it happened just because of the Ooltewah?
I think that's part of it.
It doesn't matter. It's the right. I'm glad it happened, and I hope more schools look at this and say.
I will give the director of schools, Dr. Cash, kudos because
absolutely.
Before the team went, the coach expressed some nervousness about going on the trip because of the Ooltewah situation, and they actually brought police officers and counselors in to talk to them about how to handle things should something happen. And so expectations were set. They did it very well.
All I can say is these kids were pretty stupid.
Well, let me say something, though.
Well, you know what? That doesn't bother me.
Kids have always been stupid.
I expect kids to be stupid.
I know.
I'm not even
but after all this stuff happened in Ooltewah, for them to be down there and get caught doing that.
I'm not condemning the young people for having bad judgment in high school because we all had bad judgment.
That's right.
I'm praising the adults in the room for the way they handle it.
Look, here's an important thing to keep in mind. How do you become better in life? You become better in life by making a mistake, suffering a consequence, and you correct. So actually, it's the schools that don't correct that you wonder why these kids keep making the same mistakes. These kids, hopefully, won't make this mistake again. And let me also add that you have now, finally, after years, you have a county school board and a county director of schools that are functioning incredibly well together. They have put together a good team. They cooperate. They're on the same page. And this is the kind of results you get. And I hope the voters, when they get to the elections this next session, keep in mind that we actually seem to have some stability and some good sense on the school board right now.
All right, let's give them all a round of applause. Thank you. All right, we've got to take a break. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Backfire with Steve Hickson. We'll be right back after this.
You've arrived. Wolf Island is your hometown oasis. WOOP LP Cleveland. Wolf Island. Radio 99.
Check into cash. The cash you need today is waiting for you at Check into Cash. It's your money, so come in and get it.
Get a payday advance today for up to $425. At Check into Cash, we make it quick, easy, and confidential.
The cash you need is right here, so stop worrying and stop in to Check into Cash today.
Borrowers often use payday advances over a period of months, which can be expensive. Restrictions apply. See store for details.
Guns, guns, and more guns. That's right, folks. U.S. Money Shops has just received a large shipment of pre-owned Glock 22s, 23s, and the awesome Beretta 8040D Cougar. These guns are law enforcement trade-ins that start at just $379.99 while supplies last. At U.S. Money Shops, there's no shortage of guns, so if you're looking for a great deal on a newer pre-owned gun, then check us out first.
Buy yourself a gun today, the better way at U.S. Money Shops.
Visit usmoneyshops.com for the location nearest you.
If you need a little green, let
Hello, my name is Andy Figglestaller with Ed Jacobs & Associates. We are an employee benefit and insurance broker in business for the past 20 years. The new healthcare law, also known as Obamacare, has finally arrived. The law is complex and the choices are confusing. You have questions, we have the answers. It is our passion to find cost-effective solutions for every client. The solutions will be different for every person or business. Let our knowledge, experience, and passion go to work for you. Contact us today and let us assist you through this process. Our phone number is 423-473-0202, or you can find us on the web at edjacobs.com.
Train Endurance Engineers are an elite group of extremely devoted individuals who stop at nothing to push our heating and cooling units to the brink. That way, when they pick up the pieces, they'll know exactly how to make the Train we install in your home even more reliable. Right now, their target is a Train AC unit.
Testing control. Fire up the pitching machine.
Their methods may seem unconventional,
Okay, cue the jackhammers.
but it's because of their tireless efforts that it's hard to stop a Train.
When you want an unconventionally efficient heating and air unit that keeps your home right in the comfort zone day in and day out, nothing will do but a Train. To get the best Train service, call your local Train comfort specialist. Mechanical Systems, 336-5739. Keeping you comfortable is Mechanical Systems' only business, and they've been providing high-quality service and installations for more than 30 years. Mechanical Systems, 336-5739. That's 336-5739.
It's hard to stop a Train. Really hard.
Yeah, you looking for something sweet? I know you are. Bring your little sweet self to the Village Bake Shop. Around since 1961, there ain't a baked good in the galaxy the Village Bake Shop can't whip up for you. So when you're ready to treat your mouth to a taste it won't soon forget, get over to the Village Bake Shop in the Village Green Town Center, or give them a call at 476-5179. You dig?
No dealers allowed.
Jackson Catnapper, family owned and operated in Cleveland since 1933, offering the best with over 70 styles of recliners, sofas, electronic lift chairs, full living room packages. Call Mike now at 961-7239 because Jackson Catnapper now offers sales to the public
Every Saturday. That's right, every Saturday.
from 8 in the morning to 1 in the afternoon. Or call Mike at 961-7239 or go see him
every Saturday
at 1911 King Edward Avenue, just across from the main plant. Jackson Catnapper, family owned and operated in Cleveland since 1933. 961-7239.
No dealers allowed.
You're listening to Backfire with Steve Hickson on Whoop FM. Call 423-614-5553 to join in on the conversation. Now, back to Backfire.
All right, we're backfiring it here at Whoop Studios with John Stanberry and Franklin Chansey, and we got Commissioner Tom Cry, and we've got a new person that's entered the studio, Commissioner Mylan Blake. So now we can get down to the nitty-gritties. Real quick, Tom.
Good morning, Doughball.
Good morning,
Good morning,
Mylan.
John Franklin.
Real quick, give me an update on your workers' comp deal. Just try to do it in 10 words or less.
You're a man. You're a man with a lot of vision. What we've accomplished, number one, we have identified the problem. Number two, we've addressed the problem. Number three, I think action is being taken in those areas where the managers and supervisors and elected officials can make changes. I don't have the official results, but I do believe that we've had a dramatic reduction in workman's comp claims. Safety training has been readdressed and refocused, and I think now that we're having training that when you go out and perform a job, you know how to handle the equipment. I have not personally inspected. It's not my job to make sure that we have the right safety equipment on board. The thing I'm primarily interested in is that we spend $623,000 on workman's comp claims on our insurance premium for workman's comp, coupled with roughly $500,000 on property and casualty. That's $1.1 million. I'm convinced if the proper attention is placed to the area that we can saving up within about 2 to 3 years that we could have financed that Spring Branch industrial bond that we placed. And that's what I'm after. We can't get a property tax increase. We can't get a wheel tax increase. We can't get sales tax because the city gets it all, basically. So we have to generate money. We have this commission, and I think it should be given credit for, created the equivalent to about 5 cents of property tax, and so we can get some of these things done. We're still looking for other areas. Workman's comp is one of them. It takes about 2 years to cut these claims down to where it will have an impact on our insurance bill.
Well, Tom, you've already started that, so we appreciate you getting that going.
I don't know if it was me, but we're putting sunlight on the issue, and it's amazing how the grass grows. When it's
Tom, one just simple question. Did anybody print off the Wikipedia page on poison ivy?
Oh, I think poison ivy. I doubt that we'll have many more claims on poison ivy.
Because that won't cost a whole lot to print that page off.
Now, boys, let me tell you something. I'm really allergic to poison ivy myself. I've had 2.
Do you know what it looks like?
Hey, yes. But
do you know how to avoid it?
Sometimes it'll sneak up on you. But, in a fire, if you're allergic to it and somebody's burning it, I'm telling you, it's a bad deal. So things can happen.
You got to have masks on. There's safety procedures for that, and in the heat of battle, you sometimes forget about safety procedures. But
month after month.
But we have to be reminded of it. I think we have been reminded, and I'm anxiously awaiting the current or last quarter's results.
When I had to take cold showers and wash with dishwashing soap instead of regular soap, I learned not to get around that poison ivy much.
Well, if you get around it, you need to be covered up, and. But we're making progress. I think, but the bottom line hasn't been given yet. We'll see in a couple of weeks.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you,
Mylan. Real quick, tell us why when the county is going to be totally computerized.
When the county is going to be totally computerized,
right?
About adequately computerized.
Adequately.
What about the read-only reports? What's the problem there?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, we've come across a couple of situations over the last couple of months, probably, and maybe in the last year or so, where it would just be helpful if, we could, just have on our computer, we have an administrative assistant, and ask her to run the report instead of putting in a request. So I was just looking to streamline something that's done in the Fortune 1000 world all the time, and just seeing if that was a possibility.
It seemed to spark a little interest.
Yeah, you could say that. But I mean, I think that's just part of it, I guess. But I mean, the end of the day, if we can get this done, I think it'll be helpful and streamline how we do business.
Oh, we all know it'll be helpful. It's just trying to get it done, right?
Yeah. So I guess the responsibility is on me to educate.
Are we doing anything towards getting it done?
Yeah, I mean, I started the process. The catalyst was to bring it up in the IT committee and make sure that everybody was on board, get consensus, and start moving forward. Now we're in kind of the debate and what's the next step.
So I mean, it's you're in the getting yelled at stage instead of the debate stage.
That's fine. I mean, as long as you yell at me and leave everybody else alone, but. I mean, if we can get this done, I think it'll help us out with our decision making, especially because we just entered into the budget season right now. So, and the finance committee meets every other Monday, and some of these reports would be good for the finance committee. So it's just part of the process, really.
Is there any discussion going on? We mentioned briefly earlier the new census data that came out, which showed Bradley and Hamilton County both having 5.2% population growth in the last 5 years, the two highest in the southeast Tennessee region.
I haven't seen that report.
It's in the paper this morning, but according to this, our county population increased 5,128 people between 2010 and 2015. If we're on that kind of trend line, seems to me critical that we be thinking about the long-term implications of that and starting to plan for that now.
As far as where are these people going to go? And
Where are they going to go?
developed?
But how is that going to affect our infrastructure, our educational system, our tax base, all sorts of things affected by that kind of growth? That's dramatic.
Well, as far as the education, because that's probably the biggest hit, the school board, I'm sure they're aware of it, and they do their analysis. And I know that we got Lake Forest done, and we've told them, basically get your priority list and don't wait till the last minute. Let us know as soon as you feel like you've got something to present it, so we can start working on things, 24, 36 months ahead. And they've kind of identified the next thing that may take a year or two. But as far as on the county commission side, working with the other elected officials and making sure that we can do government more efficient is what I'm after to handle the growth.
I want to change the subject a moment.
You want to change the subject?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I want to get on something really important.
The Braves?
No. Trump released his plan to get Mexico to pay for the wall. What's your opinion, John?
I don't think it'll work, but
Well, it seemed to me to have sort of an obvious flaw in it.
What is it?
Well, his theory was he was going to withhold the payments that illegal immigrants send back to Mexico, which is a big part of their economy. But at the same time, he was going to deport all of them. Well, what am I missing there? If they're not here, how will you be withholding their payments?
Well, how are you going to withhold their payments? Are you going to have the government looking at every bank transaction that goes in and out of Mexico?
John, it used to be that they couldn't send money back. It used to be that way. And we got loose and started letting it happen. I think it's a pretty smart move myself.
Okay.
I mean, really and truly, I think people come here to work and they're hard workers.
Well,
they send this money back to support their families.
Let me just point out some obvious trends that have been going on.
And it's a huge deal in Mexico. The money that's coming across is a big deal to Mexico.
Over the last 24 months, all the data I have seen is more people have left going back down there than coming in right now. So apparently their economy doing better down there lowers the number of people coming here. Why would we want to do something that hurts their economy now?
But Steve, there's all kinds of things here. For example, his idea that with China that he's going to put a 40% tariff on. All that does is it actually hurts the poor in our country worse than anybody, because the items that they buy at Walmart that are manufactured in China will go up 40%. And so what the people paying that 40% is not China.
No, wait a minute.
It's American citizens.
Wait a minute. Would it create more jobs in America?
No, it won't.
It won't?
No, it won't. You think a company moves a manufacturing plant overnight?
No, I don't.
I mean, will it have some impact over 6, 8, 10 years? Maybe if it was sustained, but it won't be sustained. These companies will weather that. The American taxpayer will actually pay that 40% tariff, and it will actually hurt American citizens. But it sounds good in a soundbite. And that's one of my problems with Mr. Trump. I think Cruz actually summed up with the abortion argument last week pretty good. What it shows you is that Donald Trump has not thought these things through very deeply. And that's where he comes out with these things, and they do motivate people. That's how a populist works. He kind of tells you what you want to hear. But when you dig into it and you look at it, a lot of times they don't make sense.
You know what, Don? At least this is an idea. Anybody else producing any?
But
Steve, I mean, you know what? Sometimes you have to throw them out on the table and work them out.
Here's the problem.
You have to work out some of these things.
That's a relativist
Here,
type
Obama
argument.
criticized his company for leaving the U.S. for lower taxes. That's headlines.
Because he's an idiot.
I mean, President Obama made a forceful case Tuesday for stopping corporations from moving their headquarters overseas to avoid U.S. taxes. I mean, my Lord, and then and then the same phrase, he'll sit there and criticize these people for leaving, but then you have...
Well, these are people who didn't move all their manufacturing and so forth. These are people who just moved their quote headquarters,
Right.
Well,
so they could claim they're a different corporation.
Pfizer, $160 billion deal to join both
corporations move their headquarters among states all the time for the same reason. That's why huge numbers of them are registered in Delaware, because Delaware has better laws. The president's problem is he has an inability to learn. If he looked at this problem, the real learning solution would be to say, our corporate tax structure is too high, we need to get it down. But he doesn't learn.
Pfizer's moving to save itself $35 billion in taxes a year. They're moving to Ireland.
If we're going to talk about Trump, do you want to talk about the thumping that he got last night in Wisconsin?
And
his statement afterwards, which is so unpresidential and so politically
Did you
inept.
stay up that late?
Did you see his statement?
No, I didn't. Tell me what happened.
I don't have it in front of me, but
He basically said that
he called Ted Cruz a liar in his congratulations statement. He
called
said
him a
lying
Trojan
Ted,
horse that was being used by the GOP
and that
establishment.
Ted was nothing but
to
a puppet of the establishment.
To steal
Steve,
the.
Well, he did just tell another big lie, didn't he?
No, he didn't.
No, they were talking about it last night. I can't remember what it
Trump's
was.
people talk about stuff all the
No, it
time
wasn't
that's
Trump.
not true.
It wasn't Trump. It was the news agency.
What lie is he supposed to have
forget,
told?
but there was something came out last
I don't
night.
remember. I didn't see that last night, and I watched all. My point, though, Steve, is you're going to have, last night, Hillary lost pretty bad. Apparently, Bernie Sanders won in all
Hillary
but 3
lost so
counties.
bad she left town.
But here's the point. She didn't put out a statement that diminishes her and diminishes the process and divides the party greater. And that's what Trump, pull his statement up, and I will be really shocked if you can give me a defense of that kind of cartoonish statement.
The bottom line is that Trump went from needing 51% of the remaining delegates to clinch the nomination to needing 56% of them after last night.
Well, I understand, but
So that's
the race is
that's
still
the
on.
reality.
The race is still on.
That's the reality.
Well, do you think? No, wait a minute. Do you think that the GOP helped Trump in Wisconsin any? I mean, not Trump, but
What GOP?
Cruz?
See, here's another thing where you're going.
Do you think the GOP helped him any?
I don't know.
No, you don't think they pumped money into him? You don't think they run negative
Who
ads?
is the GOP in Wisconsin?
Who's the GOP, period?
The GOP in Wisconsin, Steve, are the outsiders who have fought against the labor unions. Here's a really, let me give you, this is another reason why I'm really concerned about his competency as a president. When you go into a state like Wisconsin that has elected a really solid right-wing conservative governor who has enacted policies that brought down the ire of the Democrat Party and the entire union base, and he's been reelected.
Has he been for Cruz until lately?
Actually, he wasn't.
No.
No.
That's right. Who do you think talked him into supporting
Hang
Cruz?
on a minute. I'm getting there. I'll tell you what talked him into it.
Who talked him
Trump
into it?
goes into the state of an immensely popular conservative Republican governor who has been through more battles than you can even shake a stick at, unfair battles, been persecuted by out of control Democrat prosecutor, has won 3 re-elections that he shouldn't have had to do.
He did.
What did
he
Trump
fought
do?
a hard battle
He went
and did a
in
good
and
job.
criticized him and used the Democrat state party chair's criticisms that he didn't raise taxes enough. Now, Trump, who's saying he's a conservative, saying he's a Republican, criticizing a Republican governor for cutting taxes was, even if you don't want to discuss the actuality of the taxes increase versus cuts, that was politically ignorant, just stupid politically.
I didn't hear it, but whatever.
He criticized him for not raising taxes, Steve. Are you for raising taxes?
No.
Well, your guy was.
I'm not sure what he was talking about.
He said he should have raised taxes.
Well, I didn't hear that.
He's done away with over a $2 billion state budget shortfall by cutting programs. Trump came in and said he should have done it by raising taxes. So that's your guy.
Oh, well, but anyway, I just wanted you
I
wanted you to know I think the GOP is really doing a good job of getting behind Cruz now. Even though they don't want him, that's how hard-headed they are.
I agree.
What about Hillary?
Sanders had a good night.
Yeah. Hillary had a terrible night, didn't she?
Okay. I don't disagree with that.
Is Sanders giving Hillary more than she thought?
I think that's probably true. But it thus far has not changed the trajectory any. She's still got a bigger lead over him than Obama had over her. at this point in the process in 2008. So I don't see anything changing right now. She got closer to the nomination last night. He picked up some delegate wins over her, but by and large, I don't think it changed anything. I expect the next races in 2 weeks that Trump's going to do better.
I'd say he's going to do a whole lot.
Because
I don't know. This actually changes the momentum. And the same thing with Bernie. The reason that Hillary has not been in Wisconsin think about this. Why would Hillary need to be campaigning the last 2 or 3 days in her home state of New York?
Well, let me say this. Sanders left Wisconsin and didn't give his speech from there. He gave it in New York last night. So,
yeah, but she's been gone for 2 or 3 days.
Well, because
to her home state.
I think that's smart politics.
No, it means she's at risk in her home state.
She's worried.
Well, it's also proportional there. So it's not.
Look, you're right. The Democrats have cooked the books, and she's got it in the bag. But it's going to be an embarrassment if she can't carry or can't.
Respectfully, there aren't that many winner-take-all states left for the Republicans either.
We don't have superdelegates that are.
We're not talking about superdelegates.
Well, yeah,
right
you
now.
are, because that's why she's in such good shape.
No, she's 250 ahead.
If you divide,
and by the way, let me just say that she's gotten 2 million more votes than Bernie Sanders has gotten.
I understand that.
So you say she's in trouble. I get that he's had a good couple of weeks, and I understand what that could be interpreted to mean. But in terms of the nomination, I don't see that yet. Now, what I do think is that there's a much greater likelihood at this point on the Republican side that you're going to get to the convention without anybody having the 1237 or whatever's required.
Right. I think at this point we will.
Now, the question is what's going to happen, because you're going to have unpledged delegates at that point who are going to have to make some
what's going to
decisions.
happen is the rules that have been in place for decades that Ted Cruz has been smart enough to actually look at and figure out how they work are going to come into play.
Okay.
Now, Hillary lost 500 superdelegates last night with that election?
No. She didn't lose any superdelegates.
Her husband said he may vote his superdelegate spot for Sanders.
The most important part is, though, that she has a 250 delegate lead amongst earned delegates from the election.
Let me ask you a question, Franklin. If it wasn't Bernie Sanders out there on the campaign trail saying these basically socialist statements, it was Elizabeth Warren, what kind of shape would Hillary Clinton be in?
Well, Elizabeth Warren would be running stronger, I think.
I think Hillary would be losing.
Possibly, but she's not in the race, so it doesn't really matter.
I think it's hilarious that Bernie Sanders is where he is against her. I think it's hilarious.
Well, a year ago he wasn't even a Democrat; he was a socialist.
I think
it's hilarious that he's giving her this kind of race.
I think it's as I said last week, it's the same sense of disaffection that's present in the Republican primaries right now. That's what you're seeing. And I get
have
that.
just as big a divide in the Democrat Party as you have in the Republican. The difference is the media doesn't report on the Democrat divide.
I'm not so sure that's true, John.
Franklin, these Bernie Sanders people,
John,
did you
John,
see the response that Hillary gave one of them in the audience last week?
Let me put it this way, John. The current favorite of the moderate wing of the GOP right now has been described by other members of that organization as somebody that if he ran over them, he's not sure he would stop his car.
You talking about the joke that Ted Cruz made on the night show?
No, I'm talking about what, say, Lindsey Graham said about Ted Cruz. That if he were murdered on the Senate floor, he's not sure you could get a witness to testify against the murderer.
I remember that. And that speaks to how the Washington establishment hates Cruz.
No,
but now they're getting behind him.
Yeah, because they're scared of Trump. Because Trump's not a conservative. Trump's not a conservative.
So we just can't let the.
That's why.
Wait a minute. We just can't let the public make this decision.
Actually, you can, and it's called rules. And if your guy who is such a great negotiator and such a great businessman and is going to negotiate such great deals can't read a state Republican bylaws that's been in place for 25 years and figure out how it works, it doesn't speak well to how good he's going to be in the presidential office.
Pretty good ideas, John.
Which ideas?
How about charging for the pipeline?
One of his foreign policy advisors, Steve, graduated college in 2010.
Okay.
He listed the guy as one of his major foreign policy advisors. He's only been out of college 5 years, has done nothing.
Where's he raised?
Up New England, up northeast again.
I just wondered. Hey, John.
By the way,
you're going
to
find something positive to say about Trump.
I will when he gets the nomination, if he gets the nomination.
Right.
But I will tell you this.
I can't wait for that.
One of his guys has now made the statement. Now, you please defend this for me, okay? We're going to get a list of the Republican delegates' hotels and hotel rooms, and we're going to release it to our followers and tell them to go find them. Now, tell me that's not a threat.
Now, say that again. What are you reading that from?
This is Roger Stone. He's one of Trump's top guys. And Stone said that Trump, organized by Trump Nation, but said, we did inform them. We will disclose. Now, this is a tweet that he put out. We will disclose the hotels and room numbers of those delegates. We urge you to visit their hotel and find them.
For what?
To threaten them into making sure they vote for Trump.
I don't think it's a threat.
Read it.
Well, I mean, did it say it's a threat?
Why would they need to find them in their motel rooms at the convention? Why would
how
Trump
about ask them to vote for Trump?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, because
Did you ever think about
that's
that?
not a threat.
I read a really good article
Please vote for Trump.
yesterday about the 1976 Republican convention.
Right.
And
Ronald Reagan was contested convention.
Sure. This is not a negative thing.
I know.
But it talked about the great extent each of the campaigns went to try and woo those delegates there. In some cases above the board, in some cases not. But it was really fascinating. I think you'd find the article really interesting.
Well, by the way, the convention with Abraham Lincoln was a contested convention. Lincoln entered it with less votes than the leader and ended up after about the second or third ballot of being nominated president.
I'm not worried.
It's just a different world in the age of television.
As the world turns, we're going to still keep going. I want to talk about millions of Americans may be penalized for not purchasing health insurance.
Of course, that was always in the plan.
So we've got nothing to worry about all these extra costs with health insurance. The penalties are going to make up for it.
They're going up
Obamacare.
every year.
It's an incentive to go get insurance.
It's not
Is
an incentive,
Obamacare
it's
a good thing or a
punishment.
bad thing? I'm going to ask you that again, Franklin.
The uninsured rate has fallen by, I don't know, 20%.
Can they get covered? Can they get care? No.
Most of them.
No,
yes.
they can't.
Yes.
Anyway, we can carry on.
And actually, the uninsured rate is not. There's still about 30 million people uninsured, which
The
is what we
uninsured
have.
rate is down to about 10%.
Well, you all play with the statistics
It was
all
up.
you want.
It was up as high as 19%.
It was 30 million when we started, and it's still 30 million.
They're still paying.
No,
they're
it
going
was
to pay.
much higher than
They're
30.
going to pay the fines rather than pay for the.
Well, I said
insurance.
this 2 or 3 weeks ago. In Great Britain, which is what the president loves, 131 out of 139 National Trust hospitals are losing money. 131 out of 139.
It's going to get worse.
That's
before it gets
socialized medicine for you.
It's going to get worse before it gets better. Mylan, you're awful
Thanks for
quiet
coming.
over there.
No,
I
I'm
want you.
listening to this,
I want you to have the last comment. What would you like to say about being a county commissioner?
What would I like to say about? Well, since I got 4 of my constituents right in front of me, it's an honor and a privilege to serve. How's that? Now, right now, at Delbar, a lot of good things are happening. You're going to see a lot of things. We're getting ready to get the resolution for the bond for Spring Branch. I think you're going to see a lot of things happen at Exit 20, both at the industrial park and the surrounding area. That speaks to what Franklin talked about earlier, the growth, all kinds of different level jobs over there. So I think that's a good thing. We have to do our part in making sure we're ready for it. We have a workhouse work release program that we're getting ready to do a bond issue on as well. And that
Where's the workhouse going to be?
it's going to be over there at the current Justice Center. It's going to expand out there in the front, if you will. Oh, sorry. And I've talked to a couple of judges, and they look forward to it. It helps them with their sentencing. And what's the other thing? Spring Branch, the workhouse.
Well, when are we going to get someone on the commission, if we're talking about all these computer issues, someone that actually works for a national computer company and is considered maybe sort of a local expert on computers?
When?
Oh, wait a minute. That's what you do for a living.
Yeah. Well, we're working on it. I brought all the elected officials in on a meeting a couple of months ago, and we talked about some of the things that we'd like to see. And we're working with the computer vendors.
Was your request part of what y'all discussed at that meeting?
Not that, but I know your Commissioner Cryer this morning talked about the interfaces and being able. Mike Smith, the trustee, has information that the clerk and master needs because of the tax situation. We want to get that straightened out. The assessor of properties has information, and the trustee need to share data on there. So there's a lot of that, and that was what I started working on when I first got on. This is kind of a request for the commission. It's probably more for the finance, really, but it's for all the commissioners. With the read-only or access to the financial system. But I am diligently working on trying to streamline how data is moved around at the county level. And, the email situation, we just, Director Bradford, I believe that's his title, that Eric just appointed, Director of Communication, asked for email addresses for the deputies. We're getting that done, stuff like that. So we're working on it. It's just kind of like moving mashed potatoes.
I applaud you for undertaking the effort. I agree. It's overdue, and it's something that needs to happen. I appreciate you taking the lead.
The main thing I hope to do is be able to quantify that because, as you talked about, the growth, we can either do two things. Either we got to hire more employees and grow the number of employees, and then you got wages and benefits that you're going to have to add that, or you find a better way or a faster way to handle that volume or a combination of efficiency. So I'm going for the latter.
All right. Keep up the good work. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Backfire with Steve Hickson, John Stanberry, and Franklin Chansey. Catch them again on Whoop FM at noon today and every Wednesday.